My name is Heidi Sentivan. I'm an architect and I currently work at Cueto Kearney Design right here in Swarthmore. I live in Rutledge with my family and I'm proud to have a daughter at Strathaven Middle School and a son at Strathaven High School. I've been a registered architect for the past 20 years, working on all different types of buildings, from small residential projects to large university buildings and master plans. I currently work at a small firm with just a few people, so I still do a fair amount of drawing and detailing myself. I really like being able to stay involved in the design. Today, I'm sitting in an addition that is currently being built on our house. This is something that I designed, and I'm fortunate to be working with a great contractor on. It's a super exciting project for me because I get to live in it when it's completed. I wanted to start off giving you a little bit of background about myself. As a kid, my favorite hobbies were drawing, playing with Legos, and building things. I spent hours building all kinds of structures with Legos and blocks. I continued taking lots of art classes during my middle school years. In high school, I took a lot of math and art classes, finishing up with AP Calculus, which meant I was able to skip calculus in college. I also took art and sculpture classes outside of school. When applying to major in architecture in college, there's often a portfolio requirement, which meant I had to pick my 10 best pieces of art to include. In my case, that included artwork from my art electives and other creations I had created outside of school. Architecture school tends to be very competitive, so making sure that you have a good solid base in art is really important. I studied at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, and I have a 5-year degree, which is called a Bachelor of Architecture, with a minor in architectural history. Since I knew I wanted to study architecture when I was in high school, I only applied to 5-year programs. Other colleges that have 5-year programs include Penn State, Temple, and Drexel. I also studied abroad in Rome with Cornell University for 1 semester during my 4th year. While we were in Rome, the school organized amazing tours and trips around Italy. We spent hours sketching and taking photos. Being able to spend several months in another country is something I can't recommend enough, no matter what your major is, even if you aren't very good at Italian. I wanted to go over the educational requirements to be an architect. Because architecture is a registered profession, like engineering or law, schools must be certified on a regular basis to offer an accredited degree. The 2 degree options for an architect are a Bachelor of Architecture and a Master of Architecture, although the master's degree is considered equivalent for being an architect. The difference is a Bachelor of Architecture is a 5-year undergraduate degree that you apply for coming out of high school, where a graduate degree you apply for after finishing a 4-year bachelor degree in something else. Depending on your background, that requires another 2 to 3 years of study. After you complete college to become a registered architect, you must then continue with an additional 3 years of internship and then pass the registration exam. There are a number of required classes you must take in college. The most important class is Studio. This is a class worth the equivalent of several other classes. This is where you're given a design project that you work on throughout the semester and finishes with a critique that you must present to your professor, visiting experts, and other students. The upside to Studio is you usually get lots of one-on-one time and small group time with a professor to talk through your design. Studio classes are incredibly time-consuming, and many students change their majors the first couple of semesters when they realize what's involved. Less than half the students we started with graduated in architecture. The upside is that you usually become close with the other architectural students as you spend so much time together. Other class requirements include physics, structures, architectural history, drawing, and building construction. After graduation, I took a job in Philadelphia. Having previous summer internships helped on my resume, as did a portfolio. I first worked for a large firm called Venturi Scott Brown and Associates as an intern, working my way up. At the time, they were very well known and working on projects all over the world. I started working on a master plan for the University of Michigan. This involved looking at the entire campus and determining where the university should focus its growth and which buildings should be preserved and how pedestrian access can be improved. I had the unusual experience to work on projects there for over 7 years, starting from that master plan through multiple site studies to the design of a new science quad to the design and construction of a large laboratory building. After that, I was the project architect for 2 different renovation projects at Harvard University, one involving a historic structure. VSBA is an unusual firm in that it's set up similar to a college studio. You would meet with the partners on a regular basis, showing your updates and having your design critiqued, and then going back to make changes multiple times. The hours were very long. I worked there for 11 years in total, becoming an associate at the firm. During my time, I took my architectural exam, which was a 9-part exam that I took over the course of a year. I spent pretty much every weekend during that time studying. For the past 11 years, I worked at Cueto Kearney Design in Swarthmore. After having children, I decided to leave the larger firm environment and work at a smaller one where hours could be more flexible. Our firm designs everything from university buildings to small residential additions. The projects I have on screen include my own house, a net zero house, which means it's super insulated and uses minimal energy, a new science building at Cheney University. The next images are a project that I'm currently working on. It's Amos Hall at Lincoln University, which is in Chester County, PA. The top image is the construction site from this week, and the bottom is the rendering of the project that was created during design. For this project, I go out to the construction site and observe every other week. As part of my job, I review the construction progress and confirm that it corresponds to the drawings and specifications. I meet with university representatives, the construction firm, consultants, and whoever else I need to make sure that the project is moving forward. I wanted to talk through a typical day at the office. Probably the number one thing I spend doing is checking and responding to emails and phone calls. During design, I do spend time drawing, marking up drawings, and writing specification, which includes lots of discussions with other members of my office, consultants, and product representatives. Drawings include documenting every condition in varying amounts of detail, showing all the materials we're using on a project. The specification component goes along with the drawings and details in writing the products used for the project. During construction, I spend time checking on the progress, answering questions from the contractor. Inevitably, the as-built situation varies a little bit from the design, and there's always questions to be answered. I also review the submittals, which match up to the specifications to show that they're using the products and the detailing that was requested in the design documents. I wanted to talk about the most important skills for being an architect. Number one is creativity. It's definitely the most important skill. In particular, thinking through a problem and coming up with lots of iterations and trying to figure out the best solution. Number two is clear communication. I spend hours each day writing emails, meeting minutes, and memos about the project I work on. Being able to write about complex issues in a clear way is an incredibly important skill. Number three is working with a team, whether it's in your office or with consultants. On a large project, we usually have a structural engineer, a mechanical engineer, a civil engineer, a landscape architect, and a cost estimator. Other consultants include planners, interior designers, and historic architects. Clients such as universities also have their own teams that you need to keep in contact with. During construction, this shifts to including various trades such as carpenters, electricians, and plumbers. Number four, working through complex problems. Being able to hear different opinions and ideas and incorporate them into your work is required. As an architect, you are tasked with taking all of the information and drawings from your consultants and making sure that their work is incorporated into the final design. These include things like the beam size for the structural engineer, the ducts that a mechanical engineer needs, the grading of a site for stormwater and tying into utilities. This also means redesigning the work as needed to meet the client's budget. Number five, be curious. I'm always having to research materials and products, looking at the best practice, the best way to detail materials and how they work together. As products change, you need to stay up with that information and always making sure that you know what is considered to be the best practice. The tools I use on a normal day, I use my computer obviously. I use AutoCAD because that is where all of our drawings are stored in that file with overlays of plans and elevations and sections. I use email. I also use InDesign for graphic presentations, Photoshop. There are a number of 3D software products available that we use on occasion and that other firms use more and more. There are two big changes I've seen in the career of architecture in the last 20 years. The biggest change I've seen in the architectural field is the increasing use of 3D software or BIM software. This allows for better verification of complex buildings and allows clients to see in 3 dimensions what's going to be built. The second is the importance of environmental factors in design. This includes choosing materials not just for appearance, but ones that have a smaller carbon footprint, are local or recycled. Also includes considering natural materials and low off-gassing materials to make a more healthy environment. Other considerations include energy efficiency for both mechanical and electrical, plumbing that reduces water consumption, also considering stormwater and minimizing runoff and to prevent flooding. I've had the good fortune to have some amazing women mentors from my professors to several of my bosses. Architecture is still a profession that is majority male, and finding women mentors has been invaluable. My current firm is a women-owned firm, and we work with another number of other women-owned companies, including our structural and civil engineers. The field is not as diverse as it should be. I would love to see more minorities and women be involved with design and construction. We definitely need more women in the construction field, especially all the various trades and construction management. Finally, I wanted to talk about opportunities. Sure, summer internships in architecture firms are always great, although they're sometimes hard to get. But I also really strongly encourage you to consider working on a construction site or getting your hands dirty. In high school, consider signing up for building sets for plays or taking wood shop. Another great option is volunteering for Habitat for Humanity. I also recommend reaching out to people who have occupations that you're interested in and seeing if you can take a tour or follow along for a day. Architecture is an exciting career when you get to see your ideas built and in person. And although it requires a long process to become an architect, it's a rewarding career. If anyone's interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out. Thanks so much for listening.